Week 5 was marked primarily by uncertainty and what felt like lack of direction. That's probably just because it was not completely filled with deliveries. What I know how to do when starting a business is focus 100% on getting jobs done and getting money flowing in. That's the easy part. It might seem hard because it's constant work and continuous, very difficult work, but at least it's not complicated. Do work, make money. Do more work, make more money. But when the work isn't constant, I find myself split between all of the different potential decisions that can be made. One of the decisions that I made this week was to try to fix my small trailer and my big trailer. And I feel a little bit discouraged by the fact that I put time and money into both of these things because I'm concerned that it wasn't the best investment of time and money. I didn't actually put any money into the little trailer. What I did was pull off the hubs. It was not an easy task. I ended up having to break one of the bolts to get one of the hubs off so that I could take it in and match it to buy a new one. I don't think that the hubs will cost a lot, and they seem to be the only thing that's needed to get the trailer back on the road. But come to think of it, I would really also have to buy new tires, and next thing I know, that's a couple or $300 dropped into a trailer that may not necessarily make a return anytime soon. It's so easy to start dropping money into different pieces of equipment or different things you think that you need as soon as money is available. And I am worried that I am distracted from the primary business of doing jobs and making money too soon. Even though almost $4,000 seemed like a great amount within the first 4 weeks, it's also an amount that can disappear extremely quickly, especially since I am paying over $2,000 a month on a vehicle payment and other business debts. So I did get a couple of jobs this week that resulted entirely from repeat customers. The first brought me out to Virginia, and it was actually several boxes of metal ladders, and it came from a marina supply company near Kalamazoo that has been pretty faithful about reaching out to me for these types of shipments. I got the idea they could have done the job cheaper through UPS or FedEx, so either the price ended up being slightly higher than they thought, or they just didn't want to deal with the hassle, or they wanted to give me the business, or any combination of those factors. Either way, I was happy to get the job, but I did it at slightly less than $1 a mile, and that was just in one direction. I ended up having a shipment get booked that I was surprised about out of Philadelphia. This is a shipment of mostly personal items and belongings going to Alaska. And I quoted $2,000 on that, thinking that the person probably wouldn't go for it, because in most cases, people won't pay anything near a reasonable price for things going to Alaska. I'll put in a quote for something like $2,000, and then they'll get back to me and say, could you do it for 300? My budget was 200, but I guess I could go up to 3. And at that rate, it's just not worth taking up truck space, even if I'm going there already, because it's really such an inconsequential amount for the distance that I'd rather have the truck empty, because even just a couple small deliveries along the way could end up adding up to more than that. But this person didn't get any other quotes, and she accepted mine. So it did turn out to be a good thing that I was out within actually 5 hours, which was a bit further than I thought from Philadelphia. But hey, I got the items picked up, and now that's done. I also had a request to do a shipment of a fryer with pickup in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, going to Chicago. And I originally had work scheduled that day at the Outdoor Education Center where I work. And I love working there. I love working with the kids in the after-school program that we serve during the winter months. But I really didn't want to give up this $600 shipment for 2 hours of work paid at $15 an hour. Thankfully, one of my coworkers said he was happy to take my shift, and I was able to do this job. Originally, I reached out to 2 other people to see if they could do the delivery job so that I didn't have to ask anyone to cover my shift. And even though it was a very, very long 16-hour day, I was glad that I did it myself. 1, because I kept all of the money, and 2, because no one else would have been able to do it. There was no help on the loading end, and that was the first time, even though we've done fryers for this person quite a few times, it was the first time that there was literally no help. The person said, "It's heavy, I hope you have a lift gate." I did not have a lift gate. I had a pallet, which was a good thing, because I put the fryer on the pallet, and I didn't think to film this, so I put the fryer on the pallet, and that gave it just enough height to catch the top edge on the tailgate of the truck. And then I lifted it and tipped it up and pushed into the truck. I looked it up afterwards. I figured it was about 300 pounds. They're actually 380 pounds, and with all the grease still on and in this fryer, it was probably closer to 400. It was about my limit to be able to lift it and tip it without it sliding down off of the tailgate, because it only had about an inch catching the tailgate. If I had sent either of the 2 people who I had intended to send, I am certain that they would not have been able to get the fryer into the truck. And that's just how easy these circumstances can become very bad. Because if I had sent somebody else and they drove, what was it, about 6 hours to the pickup, 6 or 7 hours, and arrived and couldn't get it in the truck, I would have lost money. I would have paid for the gas, and I would have still paid them for the job, because they did the majority of the job just by driving there and driving back. Lifting it into the truck, though it was difficult, only took me 30 seconds. And then I had to figure out how to tie it down to the pallet, which had the slats so close together that I couldn't fit my fingers in to pull the strap through. So I ended up tying the strap to a tire iron and shoving the tire iron through, pulling the strap back off and strapping it down. As it was, I got to the drop-off point with only about an hour to spare, and I had got up at 5:30 in the morning to get the job done. So there really wasn't a whole lot of room for error. I didn't stop at all on the drive. I actually did stop once for gas. It was a very quick stop. So it was about a 7-hour drive with only a 10-minute stop in it. And then I didn't stop at all on the drive down to Chicago to make sure that I got it there on time. All told, I was away from the camp from 6 a.m. until after 10 p.m.
In a quarter mile, turn left onto Cobb Road.
I looked at an apartment this week, and surprisingly, the landlord, actually it was a small house, not an apartment. The landlord was a former over-the-road trucker. I showed up pulling a trailer, which I thought was going to be a huge turnoff to the landlord, but she said, "Oh, you could park it right here in the front. I've had gravel poured here. It can handle the weight of the trailer." And this put me in a surprisingly difficult decision-making process, because up until the morning of that day, which was the day after I did the fryer delivery, I was thinking that I would go for the apartment if I at all could afford it, and if I was approved, which I had fairly low expectations of because my income looks a little different than most people's income looks. And my credit is also not great. But surprisingly,
in a quarter mile, turn right onto Osborne Road.
And neither was the big trailer. So I had been thinking on Thursday night that I was going to do everything I could in my power to successfully get this apartment. Then on Friday, I remembered that we didn't have the school group that we normally have. So I spent the time that I normally would have been teaching moving to a different cabin at camp.
Turn right onto Osborne Road.
It ended up being something I was extremely happy with. And that took away a lot of the impetus.
Continue on Osborne Road for 1 mile.
An apartment. So by the time I went, I was thinking that I had actually decided not to rent an apartment, and that I was just going to be able to gracefully say I had decided against it and not face the potential embarrassment of being told that I wasn't eligible anyway. But to my surprise, everything seemed extremely aligned, and once again I wasn't sure how I wanted to proceed. What I have decided to do is seek a roommate, and I've had a response from somebody who I knew from college, so that I can rent the apartment and stay at the camp and only be paying about $300 a month, well, maybe $400 a month, more than I'm already paying for storage, but get out of my storage unit. All of this feels
in half a mile, turn right to stay on Osborne Road.
And considering that my revenue coming in week 5 felt to be coming in slower, and I think was in fact less in total than any of the previous 4 weeks. Knowing that I'm also going to Alaska.
Turn right to stay on Osborne Road.
Next month, and that I have a couple truck payments and other things falling in between all of that as well, makes me feel very nervous about taking the apartment, but at the same time,
in a quarter mile, turn left to stay on Osborne Road.
Sharing it with a housemate, and everything seems to be very well aligned to make it something that I would like to do. So with a lot of uncertainty and unanswered questions, I am closing out week 5. And
Turn left to stay on Osborne Road.
Putting all of the numbers into a short video, and that is partially simply because I feel very overwhelmed.
Continue on Osborne Road for 1.5 miles.
Despite having done less driving this week than any of the previous weeks as well. I finished the week, or rather I should say started the new week by driving up to my dad's house in Ludington. Ironically, he's receiving a shipment tomorrow of solar panels, and I should be around to help. It was a sketchy drive. I figured it was good practice for the drive to Alaska, and really puts that into perspective, because on this, what is normally a 2.5-hour drive with extreme cold and snow, it got very dicey, and that was without pulling a very heavy trailer. At this point, I also feel conflicted because I have brought my extra large trailer in to the shop in Detroit to get work done on it, which I anticipate could run me around $500. But I'm also feeling uncertain that it's the right trailer for bringing to Alaska. It's just so gosh darn heavy. And when I looked
in half a mile, turn left onto Michigan 43 West.
I found a couple of much lighter trailers that are still fairly substantially long, 25 or 29 feet, that are just old camper frames. They
turn left onto Michigan 43 West
of that trailer, and if I brought them down to just one axle, one 3,500 pound axle, then I'd actually be totally
continue
legal
for 8 miles
to use them for shipments that they can accommodate without a DOT number or an MC number or operating authority of any kind. I would actually be sitting exactly at 10,000 pounds between the 6,500 pound rated truck and a 3,500 pound rated trailer. That's appealing, but again, I'm seeing my money potentially scattered in multiple different directions, and I know that that can kill my business. I need to pick a direction and stick with it, and not throw my money in multiple different directions. So those are the questions that I'm facing, along with the question of, do I initiate the process to get my DOT number? If I get the apartment, I will have an address to use. But if I get the apartment, I won't have money to use to make a down payment on a commercial insurance policy. If I don't get the apartment, I should still be able to start the DOT MC process using a borrowed address, because the FMCSA will not accept the camp address. But I'm simply not positive that it's something I want to do. I placed my first bid today on an item, a camper going from Michigan to California, on the free basis, and I felt very unconfident, uncertain, and insecure as I made that decision, and told the person that the transport is free. They can make a free will donation for charitable work if they want to, but there's absolutely no obligation. in my mind, this seems like a great direction to go. But in my mind, everything is going right. The YouTube channel takes off. There's a lot of interest in multiple directions in what I'm doing and how I'm doing transports for free. And people are taking the initiative to make donations. I'm worried that I am going to run my business into the ground if I pursue that option and the energy is not matched in the way that I imagine it would be. But again, that is simply where I'm at the end of week 5. So thanks for watching, and catch you later.